Right, what I'm doing now is all the cases have been cleaned, is I'm now running a tap down the threads just to clear them. A, because of all the grit from vapor blasting, and B, just generally because they need cleaning out. So when you put the bolts in and torque them up, you know you're getting to the right torque. It's amazing how dirty and unclean these threads can be. And I've been, excuse me, I've done a few of these so far, and the crud that's come out has been amazing, unbelievable. So I'm just going to run a tap down this one. Let's see what comes out. Being as a demo one, it probably not much, but it's amazing what gunge can come out of these threads. Just run the tap down just gently. I'm not a thread person at all, and you know, some people know the pitch and this, that and the other, and tell you all the amazing differences between threads, but I'm afraid I'm not one of those people. What I can tell you is that threads in engine cases is always UNC, that's coarse, C for coarse. So any thread in alloy is always coarse to give it that much more chance of not stripping a big, thick, coarse thread. Whereas a normal bolt holding bits of the frame together or whatever is UNF. UNF for fine, so that's a fine thread. Okay, so it's always coarse threads in alloy and generally fine threads on everything else. So these crankcase threads are 5/16 UNF, and the more normal are a quarter. UNC, and these the more normal casing studs, those threads are quarter UNC. Right, so I'll just run a tap down just gently until it's stopped. Just wind it back out. Right. That, of course, as I was saying, just typically is actually pretty clear. You know, even that has got just a load of crud in it. But I mean, some of these flutes are coming out just absolutely just full of old gasket and bits of whatever, I don't know. I'll give another one a go, because of course that one typically was fairly clean. That feels good. This one feels quite good and tightens up a bit. They're clean enough for me to keep on just running the tap down and not backing it off. To back it off a bit, but they're generally okay. Take it down a bit. Yeah, don't have to go too far. Yeah, that one was pretty clean as well. Must be something to do with it being at the back of the crankcase, I don't know. But some of these at the front were just incredible what they were throwing up. Anyway, I'm just running the tap down just to clean all the threads, so that then, you know, I can screw things in. I know that the thread's clean. I can just screw this Allen bolt in, just goes in. Look at that, beautifully, just finger. And I know that all the threads are perfect then. It's a bit of a job, but so worth doing. You know, some of these I could hardly screw a bolt in. They were so gunged up, and just running a tap down just clears the threads. And so when everything's bolted up, you know, it's all bolted up really nice. And if the things are torqued down, they're all torqued down to the right setting. Because obviously otherwise, if a bolt tightens up, you think it's torqued, but in fact it can be actually loose. If the threads are clean, then you know you've got the right torque. Right, a couple of things then. First of all, I forgot to mention that you also need to clear out this this pipe, which is the pickup pipe, the scavenge, which picks up the oil from the sump. It comes out here and then is pumped up to the oil cooler and the top of the engine. So don't forget to clear out that this oilway as well. I just forgot to mention it before. Next thing is I've tapped all these all the holes. Just run a tap down just to clear them, and there's one thread that I'm not happy with. That's this thread here. Now I think when I ran the tap down it wasn't happy, and it's brought out quite a bit of metal. What I think's happened is it's not been cross-threaded. I don't think. It might have been over tightened, and that's pulled the threads and damaged them. So I'm not happy with it. So I'm going to helicoil it. And in order to helicoil it, so I've got all the bits and bobs here. I think I've got the camera in the right place. Just move it a bit. Okay, so we're going to drill it out to slightly oversize, then tap it slightly oversize. I think it's oversized. Oh no, it's actually taps it the same size. No, it's definitely an oversize. Got to be. Then when it's tapped, you then put the helicoil into the insertion tool and screw that in, and then you've got this tang, and then whack that in, and that'll break the tang off, and then and that's it. We'll have a new thread. So I'm going to do that now. I haven't done one for a while, but hopefully we'll be okay. The main problem I've got is that I should really have a bench drill to get this drilling dead straight, but I haven't got one. But because this is only taking off such a little amount of metal, that I'm fairly sure that the drill, well, I'm hoping the drill will remain straight and just basically go down the hole that's already there without veering off one side to the other. So first thing I'm going to do is drill that out. Then when it's drilled out, and then tap it, then helicoil insert, snap off the tang, and we're done. Famous last words. There, really happy. Very straightforward, and we now have, you probably can't see that, but we now have a perfect thread. I was worried before it was a very dodgy thread, and now we've got an absolutely perfect thread, and stronger than the original. What I discovered recently was that Norton Commandos, what they did in the factory was they actually drilled out all the a lot of the stud holes in the casings, and actually fitted helicoils from standard, because they're actually stronger than the alloy itself. Because when I stripped down my Commando engine, I thought, crikey, there's a lot of threads here have been mended. And then, so no, this is how they did it in the factory, because it's actually makes it stronger than the original. So, very happy with that. Just got the thread just slightly below the level of the casing, obviously. And obviously I've now got to get all the bits, all the swarf, etc., and the tang out of the gearbox casing. But very glad to have done that, because I now know that thread's good. All the threads are good. And just while we're still doing the crankcases, there's been one thing I've been meaning to mention for ages, and that's this oil hole here in the end of the camshaft on the T160, and then that's where the tacho drive comes out. Okay, and what happens on earlier models is that this hole, this drilling here, drain hole, isn't there, and oil tends to build up at the end of the camshaft and then sort of push itself out of the tacho drive. So that's why they added this hole, which stops that leak. So if you have an early T160, I'm afraid I don't know how early is, what engine numbers things change, but if you have an earlier T160, basically if you haven't got that drain hole, you can simply drill one out. Right, next job before we can actually put the crankshaft in the crankcases is to put the two bearings back in the rear of the gearbox in the central crankcase. So that'll be the main shaft bearing, and also the small layshaft bearing. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat up the casing with the blowtorch, get it nice and hot, and at the same time the bearings are now in the freezer, so the bearings will shrink and the casing will expand. Now what ideally I should do is put this casing in the oven, for the simple reason that will then expand the whole casing at the same level. Localized heat is never good, but because I shall probably be found hanged or something in the morning if I put this in the oven upstairs, I am using the localized heat because I'm quite keen on hanging on to my bollocks, basically. Right, now the problem is the small layshaft bearing needs to go in there, but doesn't go fully home. It needs to just protrude enough so that the thrust bearing can locate around it. If it's fully home, then the thrust bearing can move about and unseat itself. On the other hand, if it sticks too far out, it will stick out proud of the thrust bearing, and so the layshaft will run on the edge of the bearing rather than on the thrust bearing. So basically, it's got to stick out sort of about half that width, so there's enough for the bearing for the thrust washer to sit on, but not so much that the bearing sits proud of the washer. So it's a bit of a tricky one. There is a special tool for putting this in to exactly the right depth, which of course I don't have. I don't know if they're still available. I think you have to make it, but I think we'll be okay. It's just that's the problem we've got to face. Right, so I'm going to heat the casing up now and get everything nice and hot. I put the thrust washer in place because I'll put it in now because it'll probably be too hot for me to do otherwise, and then I'll take it out at the end just to finish off putting the bearing in. Okay, a bit of heat, then I'll get the bearing out of the freezer, and we'll see how we go. But I'll go off camera for a bit because I'm just going to heat this casing. Right, I've heated the casing up with a blowtorch. I've had this bearing in the fridge, in the freezer. I'm just going to put a little bit of bearing seal on it, only because I want it to make an oil tight seal, because oil can sneak down the side of this bearing, and that's simply the reason for putting that on. Right, okay, let's see if I can get the beggar in. So it goes in, it's always going to be a tight fit no matter what. You've got to start it straight. If it's not, don't start it straight, it's never ever going to get anywhere. Right, I'm going to be quick. I've got it. I think you can see that. I hope you can see that. I've got it now so that it's flush with the thrust bearing. I'm now going to prise the thrust bearing out, and then I need to knock it down a bit further. Right, I've got the thrust washer out. Just need to put this back, put this in just a little deeper. Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah. Yeah, so we're good, we're in. So, let's have a look. Just want to check I haven't damaged the bearing putting it in. No, good. Phew. Yeah, it's in there, and it's I think you can see that it's just below the level of the thrust washer. So good, so excellent. So then I just need to put the main shaft bearing in the other side. Right, getting ready to fit the ow, you can see that, the getting ready to fit the main the gearbox main shaft bearing in the back of the central crankcase. Again, that's all frozen, it's been in the freezer. This has all been heated with a blowtorch. I think you can see here that's the back of the layshaft bearing that we've just inserted. Again, I'm going to put some, very cold this, but I'm going to put a little bit of bearing seal on just to stop it spinning in this case, and not to stop the oil leak, but it was fairly loose when I knocked it out. And so there we go. Ooh, and that's cold. And then I'm going to put it in lettering side out, as I've always understood is the convention. However, I was talking to someone the other day, and they said, someone who knows about these things, and they said they didn't know about this convention of fitting bearings with the lettering outwards, but I will continue to do so. Down, jam on me, unless told otherwise. And that's the position it was in when I took it out. Bearing side out, so lettering side out, so it's going back in. Lettering side out as well. There you go. Where's that bloody drift? Make sure it's absolutely fully home and fully evenly down all the way around, obviously, otherwise it's not going to go well. But pretty sure we're all okay there. Good, good. Got a bearing that goes round. Obviously the whole case is very hot, so. But there, so we've got the outer, or rather the inner layshaft bearing in place and sealed, and we've now got the gearbox main shaft output bearing back in. So we're getting the central cases ready to actually start putting the crankcase, the crankshaft back in. Right, and there we are with the bearings in. One thing I just wanted to mention was about whether to replace the bearings or not. Now, generally, if I'm doing a full rebuild, I'll replace, or in the past anyway, I've replaced bearings as a matter of course, but they are damned expensive. And, you know, if there's nothing wrong with them, then, you know, why replace them? So, I mean, like this small layshaft bearing, always replace it because it's only cheap and it always gets damaged, etc., removing it. But a big bearing like this, I now think if we're 100% sure, well, as sure as you can be, that it's all okay, then, you know, why replace it? It's a balancing act, because obviously, you know, with things like the main bearings and the you know, the main bearings on the crankshaft and that, you don't want them to go and you have to take the whole damned engine apart again, or even this bearing. So it's one of those. You know, if in doubt, replace. Yeah, it's, you know, it's one of those. You pay your money and you take your choice.